coffee, which I think means milk with black coffee. Liverwurst with black coffee? Okay. The second was that we should never mention the Dodgers in his presence. And the third was that he has a married sister and a perfect niece living in Israel, and that Brian was going to work hard and send a portion of his money to Israel consistently. And he really impressed this on us. Well, the last one threw us, because after all, Alan and I were young at that time. And although we gave what we could when there was a war, like in 1967 or 73, we didn't give to Israel consistently. We just didn't get it. But Brian knew something that we didn't. And that is that Israel's need then and now is consistent. Whether it was for building infrastructure, absorbing Russians, finding and conserving water, or for defense, Brian knew what we other youngsters, or I should say young people, did not. Well, Francis and Brian became very close friends, and in fact, Brian would come over on many Friday nights for Shabbos dinner and sometimes sleep over, and we had a lot of really hot discussions, among them Brian's need to send money to Israel. Well, then he met Alice, and from my northern perspective, I couldn't understand how they could communicate, because I only understood about 1 out of every 4 words that she said. And then I said, what could a girl from Montgomery, Alabama, know about Israel? How would she and Brian get along? Well, I don't know if Alice came to the marriage with her love of Israel, or if she acquired it through osmosis. But as it turns out, Alice knows plenty. And Alice has served on the Federation's Israel Experience Committee, where she was instrumental in securing scholarship programs for teens and young adults to visit Israel. In fact, right here at Emmanuel, she began the Gift of Israel program to ensure that our children would have the opportunity to visit Israel. Brian, in the meantime, became active both in purchasing as well as soliciting for Israel bonds. And then the unexpected happened. The perfect niece from Israel married the perfect son from Dunwoody. And so we have truly become family, what Brian Wertheim calls mishpucha. Alan and I feel blessed to call you both, Alice and Brian, family, and couldn't think of a better couple to honor for their devotion and love for the state of Israel. Let me end by saying, you guys really put your money where your mouth is. Mazel tov on this honor. It's truly deserved. Now we have a special presentation by Alice's mother, Carol Hart.
Occasion with me that honors my children, Alice and Brian. Since I see there's a longer program, I'll make this very short. I have 2 small tokens, gifts. One is for Brian. It is a frame token of this wonderful occasion. And I have another one for Alice that she doesn't know about. It was a similar occasion in 1965 at a Bonds for Israel dinner. And can you guess how much that dinner was? $2.75. So Alice, this is not a cheap present. This was a similar Bonds for Israel honoring her grandparents.
prerequisite for being in the Temple Emmanuel Choir. That is that you must be able to play the Star Spangled Banner in every key, as Phyllis can. But she doesn't have to do it standing up, so.
As a community, how are we going to maintain our identity? As our ancestors faced these dilemmas, we have seen in our own time most recently what happens to a population that is freed from tyranny. The lawlessness created by the elimination of a tyrant gives us pause as once again we sit on the precipice of potential peace in Israel and the establishment of a new Palestinian state. After years of terror, we must ask questions that were asked by our ancestors. What are our new borders going to look like? Who is going to control the water? How are we going to unify a country that has been in many ways unified by external forces? The first lesson taught to the Israelites in the desert was that their eyes were to be turned towards the standards of their families. The second order of travel was that the families grouped together around the highest symbol of the Jewish people, the Mishkan, the tabernacle. Israel has many strengths. The family unit is strong. Its people look to the family as a tabernacle of safety and wholeness in a country that has been fractured and been embattled. But the most amazing part of the parashah for this week is that there is a census. The very first act upon leaving Egypt and beginning the journey is accounting. Every Jew must be part of the whole. How apt this is for tonight. This evening we have the opportunity to stand up and be counted among the supporters of Israel. We are the ones by buying Israel bonds. Being among the counted is a real part of our tradition. The Midrash tells a story about a group of people traveling on a boat. As they sat in their places, they noticed that one man took a drill and began to bore a hole in the bottom of the boat directly beneath his seat. The people naturally tried to stop him. "What are you doing? We're all going to drown." This man insisted that he was within his own rights to drill a hole beneath his own seat. The people replied, "True, it is your seat. But if you make a hole under your seat, we will all drown. Every Jew is an individual, but every Jew is also part of the people of Israel. There is responsibility in the privilege of being a part of this holy people. May we each take the obligation upon ourselves this evening and stand fast with those who are living on the front lines and be among those who can be counted on as part of the Jewish people, part of those who support the state of Israel. Amen.
It is my pleasure to bring greetings on behalf of the Israel Bonds Board and recognize 6 of our board members at Bonds who are also Temple Emmanuel congregants. They are Joel Cohn, Jerry Diamond, Lee Katz, Britta Levy, Steve Marcus, who was our immediate past Bonds chairman, and Brian Wertheim, tonight's co-honoree. Many thanks to Jackie and Alan Granite this evening for their leadership as tonight's co-chairs. You took on this project as a labor of love for the Wertheims, Temple Emmanuel, and the state of Israel. Both your organizational skills and devotion to duty are quite evident in every way here this evening. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we have a record attendance for the Israel Bonds event. Thank you very much, Alan and Jackie. Part of my responsibility as General Chairman of Israel Bonds for Atlanta is to do exactly what I'm doing now, representing the board at synagogue functions throughout the city. Tonight, of course, is quite different, and it's also quite special. In the first place, this is my spiritual home, and I am among family and friends. Secondarily, and most significantly, I get to participate in a tribute to Alice and Brian, a couple I've seen work so effectively to help others over many, many years. And third, and no less significant, we all have the opportunity to welcome back to Temple Emmanuel for the 3rd time a man who has done so much for all of us, former Governor Roy Bonds. When referencing the many years the Wertheims have been active participants, it is amazing to look at this young couple and recall that their service to this congregation dates back over 23 years. During this long history of service, they have taken on major responsibilities and concluded each of them successfully. Their contributions to our community and the state of Israel go well beyond these walls. I'm being rather general in these praises because you will certainly hear more specifics during the Sir David Award presentation by Paula, Evan, and Robin. However, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Brian's long-term service to the Board of Israel Bonds. Brian, I want you to know that the staff and the volunteers associated with Bonds more than appreciate your enthusiasm and hard work toward achieving our goal of increasing bond sales each year. Thank you very much, Brian. Likewise, I don't wish to steal my own thunder by saying much more about Roy Bonds because I will have the opportunity to speak more to him and about him later in the program. While we honor Alice and Brian, we are also gathered to once again demonstrate our support for Israel. I know, as I stand before you, that each of you here tonight shares with me a passion for the land, the people, and the state. We all know painfully well the daily trauma perpetrated on Israel for the past 3 years by the so-called Al-Aqsa Intifada, Israel's war on terrorism. During my last visit to Israel with Bond leadership, I was pleased to see that infrastructure projects funded with bond money continue. Highways are being built, tunnels dug, construction of the light rail system is moving forward, the expansion of the harbor at Ashdod is nearly finished, water desalination plants such as the one in Ashkelon are being completed. With more government funds needed for security, bond dollars are now also helping with immigrant absorption, which is increasing from Argentina and France. In 2002, Israel welcomed over 31,000 new arrivals from throughout the diaspora. The bottom line is that your bond dollars are not only actively at work, but needed more than ever to support the strained economy and provide critical employment. In the same light, you will be pleased to hear that in spite of difficult times, the bond program is doing well. People throughout America are saying, Israel needs help, please count me in, to the tune of $1.3 billion in 2002. With a current goal of $12 million for Atlanta, every dollar counts. I have every confidence that members of our congregation will do what you can to honor Alice and Brian and help the state of Israel by making a purchase this evening. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I am deeply honored to be able to introduce our keynote speaker this evening. This is an honor to which I negotiated intensely for with my lovely wife, Jackie. For those of you that know her, that's not easy to do and win. I'm excited about having the honor to introduce our keynote speaker because I believe that he is a man of vision and principle. And it is those visions and principles that he has worked hard as our 80th governor here in Georgia to turn into a reality for the benefit of all Georgians. His dedication to improving the health and quality of life for all of our citizens led him to create the Georgia Cancer Coalition. This is a $1 billion plus coalition of public and private efforts in his vision to establish Georgia as a premier cancer fighting state for research and treatment of cancer. I remember him saying one time that it is a shame that people are leaving Georgia to be treated in other states. And when they are treated, when you check their area codes, they're calling 404 home to see how things are going. He is determined to take the tobacco dollars, the tobacco settlement dollars, and use that to kickstart this wonderful program. On a personal level, he has helped in a program that I am very much interested in, and that is prostate cancer. He has, every single year of his term, helped to save lives through promoting awareness of prostate cancer and what it can do to affect men and their families. And 2 years ago, he participated as our keynote speaker at our annual awareness event. So on a personal level, I appreciate that. Secondarily, he is a man, as our 80th governor, who has done more for the state of Israel and to promote its economic development than any other governor before him. And as a friend of Israel, and as a friend, as you heard, of Temple Emmanuel, again, I am proud to represent this gentleman this evening. Currently, he is donating 6 months of his time to the Atlanta Legal Aid Society. So he continues, although his term of office is finished, he continues in his dedication to public service. So please help me in welcoming the Honorable Governor Roy Barnes.
First, let me thank all of you for inviting me out tonight. It's been about 2 years since I've been here, and it looks like you've grown a little bit in all directions. In fact, I almost didn't, I ran past and went by, and when I got down here, I thought I'd turned into the wrong place. Rabbi Davis asked me, he says, a few moments ago, he says, do you still enjoy going to these events? And I said, well, Rabbi, I got some news for you. I only go to the ones I like now. I want to talk a little bit tonight about my experiences in Israel and really the connection that Georgia and Israel has. And why not only all of you, but all of us should support the state of Israel and make sure that Israel remains strong both financially and militarily so that they continue to contribute to the great economy that we enjoy here. Because I don't think that folks really fully comprehend how much there is a connection, an economic connection between Israel and the state of Georgia, particularly the Atlanta region. In 2000, in the summer of 2000, at the invitation of the government of Israel, and with the cooperation of participating in a program that is sponsored by AJC called Project Interchange, I led a group as governor to Israel of about 50 distinguished business folks. And I'm not going to talk a lot about it tonight, but I'm a big supporter of the Project Interchange because I went early and stayed late. I stayed 8 full days and would have stayed another week if I could have rearranged everything in Israel. And it is a great opportunity to see not only the people, but to work with those that are in the government and to see the struggles that have been made and the accomplishments and the obstacles that have been overcome and the accomplishments that have been achieved. We went to Israel and we went all over the country, and particularly in the north where the concentration of the high-tech companies are. 6 companies from Israel located here, put offices here as a result of that trip. And I was amazed at not only the research and development that keeps Israel on a cutting edge, but also about how much Georgia is involved in Israel. For example, the cell service is provided by Bell South Mobility, a Georgian company. And they have one of the best Bell service, one of the best cell services because the government did it right there. What they did, instead of selling the spectrum and allowing all the private companies to run up the cost, what they did was said, we will give you the spectrum, but you have to keep the prices down. They have one of the cheapest cells, or everybody has, as you, all of you that have been there know. I mean, nobody uses a landline over there. I mean, it's the most remarkable thing that I have ever seen. And when I inquired about how the high-tech information and all the high-tech developments came, and of course, you find that most of those came out of Raphael, that the research and development, the military, that has helped keep them safe and secure. I also developed a great interest in Golda Meir from Georgia. Everybody talks about Golda Meir in Israel. And I came home and read 2 biographies of her. The story I love, I told it this afternoon, the story I love was the one that they told about Golda Meir and President Nixon. President Nixon, of course, was president when Golda Meir was prime minister. And they were having a state dinner one night, and President Nixon leans over to her and says, Madam Prime Minister, says, isn't it wonderful that both of us have foreign ministers that are Jewish? And to which she replied, she said, yes, but mine speaks English. Any woman, any person that is that quick on their feet, you have to learn more about it. The most touching thing that faces continuously, and the light shine in this dark building, no one can go through that and come out without weeping. And if you go through all of the remembrances, which is so important for all of us, to make sure that we never forget the horrors that occurred in the Holocaust, nor to allow them to recur again. You know, my children are all grown. Our children are all grown. When they were growing up, I would tell them that at one time in the South, that we had something called segregation, racial segregation of the public schools and the water fountain and public transportation. And they wouldn't believe it. They thought it was just one of these stories, you know, like Daddy tells, that it was a fairy tale. And I thought to myself, now how could they not believe it? But then, you know, the context, they never experienced that. And we need to make sure that the generation of children we have today and every generation in the future remembers the horrors that occurred in the Holocaust and never to allow them to occur again. And that is good and sufficient reason itself to make sure that there is a homeland that is strong and secure, is a place of refuge for any Jew on any place, in any place on the face of the earth. I got to tell you a couple of stories that happened there. While I was in Israel, this was Ehud Barak was the prime minister when I was there, and if you recall, they were just going through a very close peace process that President Clinton was trying to push toward the end of his term. In fact, you know, all of you know that have read the details. They really had a deal, and Arafat backed out at the end. I believe he wished he'd taken that deal now, in retrospect, over the last couple of years. And so while we were there, and we had visited all these businesses, and we had all these appointments every day, it was very, very busy. The State Department, the United States State Department called me and said, listen, you have to go and visit the, quote, Palestinian government. They see you on television, you're here, and I said, listen, I'm going to go business. I'm not into foreign affairs and all this other stuff. I said, they don't have any business that I'm interested in. You know. They said, well, you need to go to Ramallah and do it. I said, well, I'm not going. The next day, the Foreign Office of Israel sent a high-level foreign officer to see me. And they said, listen, we're at a very precarious time in these peace negotiations. Do this. Go. He says, we insist that you go. And I said, all right, if you want me to go, I'll go. I said, but I got two or three preconditions. One is, all of these business folks I paid that were with me, and there were several very prominent Jewish members of the business community, they go with me. And I said, number two is, I said, if you remember, there had been an incident where Hillary Clinton had been over there and they started talking about the terrorism of Israel. And it had been a big controversy because she had sat there. I said, one word about the terrorism of Israel, and I said, I'm standing up and walking out. I said, those are the two rules that I have before. So they said, we'll have that conveyed to them. I said, well, just make sure you do. Then he told me, he says, now, this is also a very touchy subject, is how you cross over from Israel over. Said the Palestinian organization, quote unquote, will send security for you and will transport you over. And the State Department of the United States was sending the charge d'affaires for Arafat's group with me. I said, well, I don't feel too secure about that. I mean, quite frankly, I said, and they said, well, this is the way it's got to be. So on the appointed night that this happened, we had this bus behind me that had all my business folks with me. And this bulletproof Suburban comes up to pick up me and Mary and my security guy and the charge d'affaires. We get into the the Suburban, and we go through, they have this elaborate system. I mean, you know, when you cross, and we go to Ramallah, which, you know, I've watched on television. There's not much left of what I saw at the time. We go through that night, and I listen to it all and everything. We have dinner. I remember the hotel's name was The Best Eastern instead of The Best Western. And the guy that was running The Best Eastern played football for the University of Tennessee. He came up and told me. I couldn't believe it. So anyway, we finished the night, and we came back across, and we got out at the hotel, and the Charge d'Affaires of the Secretary of State of the United States asked me, says, well, Governor, what do you think? I said, well, listen, Pastor, I'm going to tell you. I said, you know, down in Georgia, I said, if you go out in the country and sit on a Coca-Cola case at an old country store and listen to them talk, I said, in a little while, they convince themselves that they won the Civil War. I said, I believe you got the same problem with that crowd across on the other side. We went up the next, about 2 days later to the Golan Heights. You know, you read about the Golan Heights. By the way, they have some great wine. They've developed all this wine in vineyards up there. And you actually have to see the Golan Heights to understand the strategic importance of everything. There was, we went up, and as we came up, this colonel from the Israeli army picked us up. And, you know, I was so impressed by the high degree of education of everybody in the military. This colonel had been in the military for 18 years. He was a computer engineer. He'd been sent and received a computer engineering degree by the military. Anyway, he took us around. And there's this point, you know, where all these countries come together. Israel, Jordan, Syria, all come together. It's a big valley right down below. And we were standing on this observation, and they had this fence, this electric fence that alarms if there's anything across it. We were standing on this observation point. And this colonel that was guiding, he said, you know, there's somebody on the other side that's got a rifle pointed right at you. I said, well, that's not a very comforting thought. He said, of course, we've got them pointed at them over there, too. And then he went ahead and told me, he says, you know, the Jordanians, we get along with just fine. He said, they come over on Thursday night and we eat together. He says, the Syrians that we have trouble with. We went on and we ate in the barracks. We went in to eat lunch in the barracks there, Golan Heights. And I sat down at this table, and there was this young woman. Her name was Abigail. And she had a rifle laying on the floor, and we were sitting there talking. I was asking her about how long she'd been in. She'd been in about a year, how long she had, and what was going on. And all of a sudden, the alarm went off from the fence. And without a moment's notice, just like that, she never said another word, and she jumped straight up, reached down and got the rifle and ran out the door, as did everyone else, except the colonel. Colonel was still sitting there. He said, it's probably just a cow or something coming across the fence. He said, but you know, we never allow our guard down. In a few minutes, they came back, and in fact, it was some animal that had rubbed up against the alarm fence. And Abigail sat down, and Marie and I stayed there and talked with her for a good while about what it meant to live in modern Israel, and what it meant to her to defend her nation. And all of this unrest that has occurred in Israel in the last 2 years since I was there, I have thought about Abigail on several occasions and wondered if she is okay. I sent an inquiry. I didn't even know her last name. I sent an inquiry to the Israeli government, and they had reported back to me while I was governor that they really couldn't identify her from just those sketchy descriptions. I hope she's still well. The point I make to you from all of that is this. If young people, young women and men, can put their lives on the line every day to defend the security of Israel, that those of us who have so much in this nation can make sure that they are supported, to be secure, and to be economically viable. One last story, then I'll hush. I'll keep you on. The last day I was there, I went to see Ehud Barak. And as we were sitting in his office alone, there's no security or anything else on either side, I told him the story about going to the Golan Heights and about Abigail. And I told him, I said, Mr. Prime Minister, I said, you know, I'm here on business. I'm not here to give you advice on matters of war and peace. But I said, after I've seen it, if I were you, I believe I'd keep those Golan Heights. And he laughed. And he said something very poignant. He says, I crawled on my belly up that cliff to take the Golan Heights. He said, I would gladly give it up today for peace. These people deserve peace. They deserve refuge. And they deserve our support and our prayers. Thank you, God bless you.
Governor Bonds, I've got a little secret to reveal to you and to our members and guests this evening. The very reason that you're here tonight, all the events leading up to your trip to Israel, to your previous visits here, all began about 4.5 years ago at an executive committee meeting of the American Israel Chamber of Commerce. As immediate past chairman of the AICC at the time, I participated in a discussion with a small group of business people who felt it would enhance an already budding Georgia-Israel economic development relationship if we could only persuade Governor Bonds to come to Israel. It was decided at the time to prevail on our mutual friend Larry Cooper to ask you. You reacted favorably, and the rest is history. Since the mission, you have spoken frequently about the mutual benefits for Georgia and Israel as you have tonight. Today, over 50 Israeli companies make Atlanta their U.S. headquarters. This was accomplished in large measure to your advocacy. Donna told me not to use that word. Yeah, well, these years I still don't listen. I'll learn. At any rate, I've heard from friends, and you certainly confirmed here this evening, that you and Mrs. Bonds were stirred emotionally by the magnetism of the land that is central to the three great faiths. Rolling the tape forward, as we approach the High Holy Days subsequent to your visit to Israel, Rabbi Davids and I discussed the possibility of your joining us as a guest speaker immediately following our Yom Kippur services. We were so successful with our AICC efforts that a call was once again placed for Larry. He was intrigued by the idea, he asked you, and you graciously accepted our invitation. If you will recall, about 1,000 of our worshipers remained here to hear you speak, certainly a record number since we began the concept of notable guest speakers after services. For those of you who didn't know you on a personal level, we discovered that our governor was a warm, compassionate, and congenial person who also had a keen sense of humor. ever the forward-thinking rabbi, Stanley Davis, the following year, wanted to bring to Emmanuel another leader who was admired by our membership, Senator Zarnoa. This time, you took the lead and told your friend Sel that we were nice folks, that you were well received, and he should put us on his busy schedule. You even went to the extent of telling him that you would personally pick him up and bring him here. He agreed, and you both returned, making that day one of the true highlights of our 25-year history at Temple Emmanuel. Both these events, the mission to Israel and your visits to Emmanuel, make you most worthy of tonight's recognition. But there is icing to this already delicious cake. Friends, most of you don't know this, but a couple of years ago, in 2001, when Steve Marcus was Bonds chairman, this man, Roy Bonds, facilitated a $2.5 million bond purchase by an agency of the state of Georgia. That single purchase was the largest in the Atlanta office's history and came at a time crucial to Israel. For that enormous help to the bond organization, your promotion of economic development between Georgia and Israel, and your friendship to our Temple Emmanuel congregation, as past chairman of the AICC, past president of Temple Emmanuel, and current chairman of Israel Bonds, it is my high honor and privilege to present you with the Gates of Jerusalem Award, and it reads, presented to Roy Bonds, June 29, 2003, in recognition of exceptional and outstanding support of the historic and vital program to strengthen Israel's economic development. I'd like to begin my remarks this evening by thanking Carrie for the beautiful introduction. I'm very grateful. Well, there wasn't one. Well, it is so good to be here, to be with you, to be celebrating, especially with the Wertheim's. And Governor, there is yet one more presentation. We have a tradition in our religious school. It is sort of an animal-oriented tradition. We have a class in the religious school each year that honors those heroes of the students who stick their necks out. We call it the Giraffe Award. It's very interesting. The kids have to select anywhere in the community or in their family someone who sticks his or her neck out for a noble cause. You recently received the Kennedy Profile in Courage Award. You won that award. I would suspect primarily for the work that you did in calling everyone's attention to the impact of the flag that the state of Georgia had at that time. You said, and I quote, "There simply comes a time in the life of every politician when he must choose between a course that is popular and one that is right, but that could lead to defeat. You were right, it led to defeat. But you were right, and you stuck your neck out." And we're very proud of that. So, from our religious school, we have a special t-shirt. Stick your neck out, for Pete's sake, an act of kindness. Our Giraffe Award t-shirt. You know that Lisa and I went through all sorts of psychological trauma in coming back to Atlanta. Not in leaving for Jerusalem, but in coming back to Atlanta. I mean, there are so many things that have changed. I could just focus on one thing. We were very comfortable in Georgia. We left the state with Governor Barnes. All right, now. I'd like to recognize our Congressperson Majed, who's going to have a chance to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, We don't have to check. There is a real connection here, and a real reason why Denise is here for, I guess, a number of good reasons. But Brian is certainly one of those very, very good reasons. This is a special day, evening. We're in a beautiful place. We're just using this facility for the first time in terms of these kinds of activities. It's a good day for Israel Bonds. I found out today that just today, the state of South Carolina decided that it had a lot to learn from Governor Barnes, and today invested $10 million into the state of Israel. And the state of New Jersey, I forget which exit. But the state of New Jersey, $20 million. Now, today, is it 100? 100 million? At least 100 million in Israel Bonds sales today. It's a good day so far. It's a good day. Now, how are we going to do better than New Jersey? That's what our challenge is this evening. There's something else that I'm going to say just as a parenthesis. It has nothing at all to do with Israel Barnes. But this is a very, very special day in the history of Temple Emmanuel. Last night, at a private meeting of the board, which is going to be circulated, the letters going out, the congregation made a fabulous, the board made a fabulous recommendation that Rabbi Schwartz be approached and contract negotiations be initiated for her to be my successor. That's enough. Control yourselves. I asked Lynn Newport if I could have the privilege of being the first publicly to offer you my congratulations, mazal tov v'hatzlacha, my best wishes and love. I could not be happier. I could not be happier. And Governor Barnes, we're going to make you a member of the congregation, but remember, we just had a dues increase. That may not be such a good thing. Okay. We're going to hear comments about the Wertheims. We've already heard some good things. That's not my focus, not to say. My only involvement was early on to select a family within the congregation most deserving of this evening and this award. And I was very happy to play a role in that selection process. I have been involved in Israel Bonds for more than 30 years. I have to tell you an absolute truth. There are times when we do honorings that it makes it a little hard for me to speak. You know, kind of like, we're going to honor someone, but it is difficult to find reasons why. We're just doing it. That happens. Fundraising is a strange business. But every once in a while, names pop up that are so right and make me feel so good that the couple or the individuals we honor, in fact, bring honor to the process. Everything flows. And the two of you, Scott Colbert and I, do you remember, Scott, we were walking with Alice. It was like, was it a Sukkot picnic thing, an evening, right? We took Alice, remember that? Over to the side that we have a side that there's a whole building doesn't, anyway. Look over there, down below, we're having a family picnic. Alice, you have a little bit of time. We have a project for you. Something called Gift of Israel. What do you think about it, Alice? And God, you picked up that project and ran with it and did beautifully. I just have to say thank you for that. And Brian, thank you for having made this congregation the outstanding congregation for the support of Israel Bonds and the Bar and Bat Mitzvah program. You do that single-handedly, and you did that when nobody else was doing it as well. You made it happen here because of the kind of person you are and because of the kind of love you have. And then there's Paula
and Evan and Robin. And if there's any proof that you're deserving of an award on behalf of the state of Israel, is the fact that you have brought into your children's souls a living commitment to the Jewish people, to the synagogue, to Israel. You have made them links in your own chain of love. So this is a great evening, and I'm honored to be sharing with you and sharing with the congregation in honoring you. Okay, now, I have a job. Oh, Rabbi Davis, what's your job? I make the pitch. Okay, I make the pitch. You know what I'm going to do? I can't stand behind it. I can't stand behind the pitch. David Mamet, who was one of my most favorite playwrights, because he writes things extraordinarily weird, once made a comment. He says there's a difference between real Jews and imaginary Jews. Mamet himself is Jewish. Real Jews and imaginary Jews. Who are the imaginary Jews? By that he meant Jews who appeal to human imagination. He said those are people like Anne Frank and Janis Korczak, the Warsaw Ghetto fighters. What do they have in common? They were martyred. They died heroically. We can weep for them. By the way, they're dead and out of the way. We can spend a lot of time thinking about them. So they are in our imagination, and they are honored by the world. The Jews the world has trouble with are the real Jews, the ones who are living now, who are fighting for the right to build their lives, who are fighting for the right to have a state of their own, who are fighting for the right to be normal in the world and not have to worry about oppression and anti-Semitism. This difference between real and imaginary plays out wonderfully in Europe. Two things are going on right now in Europe. There is the widespread development of Holocaust memorials and a rising tide of anti-Semitism and hatred of Israel. How do they go hand in hand? It's easy. One services the memory of the imaginary Jew, and the other kind of hates the reality of Jews as we are. The state of Israel is one of the proudest creations of real Jews. Not saints, not martyrs. Real people who decided that we have a right to live in a world autonomously, self-governing, the right to stand up tall amidst the nations of the world, to be like all other peoples. Real Jews succeed and survive. Real Jews fall prey to temptation and corruption. A real Jewish state is not heaven on earth. A real Jewish state is not free from imperfection. A real Jewish state is a place where a real people is struggling to bring their values alive and to make a place exist that could exemplify the finest of our tradition. That's what Israel's about. No, I don't cringe when Israel makes mistakes, and it does. No, I don't cringe when the government of Israel takes positions with which I will publicly disagree. No, I don't have a problem with that. It's a real state. And I will stack the accomplishments of the real state of Israel up against the accomplishments of any other real state. And I will say to you that we have much of which to be proud. And we have much of which to be grateful for. We are speaking about real Jews, living Jews, an actual Jewish state, struggling to stabilize an economy devastated by what is going on all across the globe. We are talking about a country that is right now trying to defend itself and to take risks for peace. We are talking about a country under siege, at the same time developing a constitution and starting a constitutional process. We are talking about a country taking risks in every direction in a very inhospitable neighborhood, a country desperate for friends and support, a country desperate to be understood, but a country asking no one for permission to survive. We are responsible for that survival. We, as real Jews, are responsible for what Israel can be. The troubles? We could talk about the troubles. Governor, you mentioned the high-tech companies, and the collapse of high-tech companies after you were there is extraordinarily painful. Very difficult, the drying up of venture capital. The refusal of the EU to open up its markets fully to Israel. The wonderful threats of punishment that the EU is issuing toward Israel if Israel doesn't trust EU diplomacy in making peace with the Palestinians. God forbid that Israel should trust the EU diplomacy. Punishment if Israel doesn't accept what France tells it to do in dealing with the Palestinians. There's been an economic roller coaster ever since the Second Intifada began. Just this past Sunday of this week, the Tel Aviv stock market jumped 7% this Sunday. That would be the equivalent of a 600-point jump in the Dow. One day. What happened? Prime Minister Sharon said it's time we stop the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. He used the word occupation. Israel is desperate for peace, and its economy is totally based upon the possibilities of peace. The costs for security are enormous. Reese and I found that out, and some of you shared in that problem. You know that we were involved in a project to help buy boots and coats for soldiers, because Israel can afford great weaponry for its troops, but cannot currently afford proper uniforms for its troops. That's the real Israel. There is real poverty in Israel. There are tens of thousands of Israeli kids who are daily given lunch because they can't afford food. There are soup kitchens operating in Jerusalem, the second poorest city in Israel. Soup kitchens with people lined up for food. No, the various missions that you go on to Israel don't take you to the soup kitchens because that's not the picture they want to give you. We know about them. We know that kids take food from their school lunch programs into their pockets to bring home food to their mothers. In Israel today, we're not talking about plus investment in a cushy economy. Israel, pushed by what's going on in the global economy and pushed by its needs for defense, requires our support. Unemployment, 11%. Inflation, 7% and rising. Real estate transactions, down 12% in 2003. 40,000 families in Israel are on waiting lists for affordable housing. In the year 2000, 9.4 million visitors came to Israel. In 2002, 6.8. Tourism down more than 50%. 60 major hotels have closed. Israeli taxes pay the equivalent of 39.7% of the GDP. But Israel's government spends 55%. The economy is in horrendous shape. We went to the Jerusalem Symphony, loved it. Loved the symphony. Beautiful place, beautiful symphony. It closed in the middle of the year. The Jerusalem Symphony closed in the middle of the year. Every evening was a packed house. It closed in the middle of the year. the streets of Jerusalem are not maintained. The city cannot afford to clean them. Today, the Israeli government is voting on a new budget which dramatically cuts into the whole welfare structure of the state of Israel. The general strikes have been hitting Israel for the past 3 weeks. Most major services have been deeply affected. All this while they're mounting proposals to attempt peace again. All this while they're spending more and more money for defense. So, I'm here to ask you, help not the imaginary Israel, the Israel of dead people who can't bother you, or the Israel of dreams that doesn't need you. Israel needs us, everybody in this room. Israel needs the support of every caring American. Every caring American. Israel needs this support. For its new transportation systems, yes. For new housing, yes. To encourage investment, yes. But I have a really more important reason. If you can help tonight, and if you invest seriously in Israel bonds, you will help sustain the peace initiative. Trust me on this. An Israel that is economically secure will feel secure enough to take the risks of peace. But Israel that does not have financial security cannot take those risks. So when you invest tonight, in honor of the Wertheims, in honor of the governor, when you invest tonight, you are actually, literally furthering the peace process. That's not a bad investment. And the fact that it pays better than almost anything else you can get in the States right now doesn't hurt. I don't want to talk about benefits. It's there. Ladies and gentlemen, a bonds purchase tonight is a vote of appreciation to Alice and Brian. Ladies and gentlemen, a bonds purchase tonight is a vote of gratitude to Governor Barnes. And ladies and gentlemen, a bonds purchase tonight is a vote for peace.
I'm Herb Wallner with the Israel Bond Office. If after hearing the governor and the rabbi, you do not understand the importance of buying in Israel bonds and supporting the state of Israel, there's nothing that I can say that could change your mind. Having said that, I know each and every one of you tonight do want to help the people of Israel. And doing that by buying a bond. You were each given a commitment card when you walked in. We have extras if you need them. On the tables are rate sheets. I just want to tell you the opportunity that is available to you tonight to help the state of Israel. First of all, don't be afraid about loaning your money to Israel. The state of South Carolina is not afraid. The state of Georgia is not afraid. $1.3 billion were sold last year, so your money is secure. And as the rabbi said, it's a great rate of return. For pension and profit sharing plans, for retirement plans of Kios or other entities like that, a great way to save money for retirement is in Israel bonds. We have a 5-year fixed rate of 3.75 and a 10-year 5.1. Compare that to U.S. Treasuries. Compare that to T-bills. Compare that to what you're getting at the bank in money market or CDs. I had someone the other day, an elderly gentleman who was living off Social Security and small investment income. He said, you know what? He says, I just doubled my income. He says, I bought Israel bonds. It's paying me almost twice what the bank's paying me, and I got to help Israel. A wonderful attitude. He helped Israel, he helped himself. Our zero coupon bond, 5.65%, one of the best ways and best ways to invest in your children's future, or grandchildren's future. Buy it now, and in 10 years it's worth $6,000. Today's cost is $3,463. A great way to save for them and to teach them a very important lesson in saving for the future and helping Israel. We also have our regular $500 bond, and as Brian has done, our high bond. He started the high bond program, and as Rabbi said, this congregation sells more high bonds to bar and bar mitzvah children than any other congregation in the city. Any other congregation. And this congregation also buys more high bonds for gifts, for weddings, for bar mitzvahs, for any kind of present you think of. It's a great way to give a gift. A double mitzvah. A great gift, and you're helping Israel. $144, and in 5 years worth $180. Another opportunity. If any of you donate money to foundations, to universities, to schools, to any other charitable institution, do it through Israel Bonds. Many foundations love to take Israel Bonds. Number one, they're going to get your money, which they need, but the Israel Bond that you ask them to buy pays them a great rate of return. So if you have foundation money, talk to us about that. And one last thing I want to mention is a way for you, for very little out-of-pocket expense, to send a great deal of money to Israel. And that's our note program. And several members of this congregation have already done it. Very simply, you go to your bank, borrow $100,000 or more, if you're creditworthy, and you use that to buy an Israel note. The bank makes terms with you and usually will charge you a spread over what the bond pays. For example, if they charge you a 1-point spread, that's $1,000 a year for 5 years to loan Israel $100,000. Let me repeat that, $1,000 a year for 5 years to loan Israel $100,000. A great leverage of your money. So the opportunity for you to help yourself, to help your children, your grandchildren, and more importantly, to help the state of Israel is now at hand. Please take your commitment cards and fill them out. We're going to take about 5 minutes for you to fill them out and collect them. We would like to have a record sales tonight in honor of Alice and Brian. And after that, we'll hear from Congresswoman Denise Majid and presentation to Alice and Brian. So please fill out your commitment cards. Toby Poles, the regional director, is here. Anthony Freeberg from our office is here. And several other committee members.
In this room.
Yay.
So please.
Yeah. All right.
If you don't mind, I'm going to step around here. I realized during the campaign that most of the time podiums were almost as tall as I am, so it's better for me to be able to step out front and get from behind those barriers, those things that separate us. I am truly honored to be here tonight, and it was a special treat to be able to hear the governor talk about his experiences in Israel, and a little bit jealous because I haven't been there yet. But I believe that God has a great sense of humor, and He puts us where we're supposed to be. Because actually, I was supposed to be in Israel this week. Originally, the AIPAC and Congressional Black Caucus trip was planned for this week, but it was postponed a short while ago. And so that enabled me to be here tonight to celebrate and honor my good friends, Brian and Alice Wertheim. As a lawyer and as a judge, I had some interaction with Brian over the last several years, but we really got to know each other much better last summer. And Brian had invited me to his office earlier last year and found out that I was running for Congress and wanted to talk to me a little bit about that. And so we sat there and he shared with me some of his personal experiences and his relationship with Israel. And one of the things that he did was to show me a picture of his nephew who has fought and continues to serve in the Israeli army. And Brian said he wanted to help me get elected. He was going to work with me to do that. But he asked me to, if I were successful, if I would remember his nephew and make sure that I thought about the struggles that he and so many others have endured in order to protect and preserve the state of Israel. That if I were elected, would I be willing to think about that in making those decisions that I would be called on to make in Congress. And I made that pledge to Brian that I did, that I would. And Brian and Alice and his entire family just showed me how much of a commitment they have to making our society better, and how much love they have for this community and for Israel. And it was just a joy to get to know all of them, and I continue to watch his children grow. And Evan served as an intern in my office this past fall, he started in January and just completed his term, and I've been enjoying watching Robin continue to express herself in the newspaper, and she gets as much, probably more press than I do. But it really is a tribute to them, and to have all of you here, to have all of you provide the kind of support that you do for them, for their family, and for this community. And so I'm just really glad to be here with my husband, Rogers, and to play a small part in honoring two people who are just incredibly special to me and to us personally and to this entire community and to the state of Israel. And so Brian and Alice, I'm glad to be here. I have to say it the way I say it in Brooklyn, Mazel Tov. And just to let you know that I will continue to support the state of Israel and its efforts to preserve and protect the democracy that exists. And I was struck by what the rabbi was saying about, and thinking about the parallels between what's going on here in this country and what is going on in Israel. And I certainly want to pledge to you, Alice and Ryan, and to all of you, that I will continue to think about those challenges, those struggles, those sacrifices that all of you have made and that we all must continue to make to preserve democracy in the Middle East. And so I'll close by just letting you and Alice, you and Brian know that Rogers and I, as just a small token of our personal love for you, will each purchase a Chai bond in your name, one for Alice and one for Brian.
Well, when we heard that we would be speaking after Governor Barnes, Rabbi Davids, and Congresswoman Bouget, the first thing we thought was, oh no. These were only some of the most powerful orders we'd heard in our lives. But then we realized that nobody else could pay tribute to our parents, Brian and Alice Wertheim, the way we could. Having spent more time with them than anyone else, we feel qualified to say that our parents are truly two of the most compassionate, dedicated, and caring individuals.
Dad often jokes that he is in a mixed marriage, a Yankee and a Southerner. Though he jokes that he and our mom come from different worlds, the values they've instilled in us come from a truly compatible partnership of two people whose morals and vision of the world are perfectly aligned. They have worked and continue to work their hardest to be good parents, and we like to think we turned out all right.
Through all their words and deeds, our parents have taught us time and time again that we must take an active role in Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. They demonstrate for us what it means to be a good parent, a good citizen, and a good Jew. There's no better way for us to honor them than to take a few minutes to highlight
first received our allowance, we had to immediately place 10% in the tzedakah box. This taught us the obligation of giving to charity, and that even when you only have 50 cents, you always have a nickel to spare to give to someone who needs it more than you.
Fairness. When two of us fought, we both got in trouble, regardless of who started it.
It was usually Paula.
I can still hear my mother saying, "It takes two to tango." This taught us fairness, and that in any dispute, chances are good that fault can be found on both sides.
Trust. As we got older and began to drive, most of our friends had curfews. Mom and Dad never gave us a curfew, but rather preferred to demonstrate their trust in us and our decision-making skills by assuming that we would take responsibility for telling them where we were, who we were with, and when we would be home. This demonstrated our parents' sincere level of trust in our relationship with them and in our ability to make wise choices.
Vision. Throughout our lives, our Father has always said, "You know what I want you to be when you grow up? Whatever you want to be." Our parents never pushed us to do anything but our best, and encouraged us to expand our horizons and pursue whatever academic interests, activities, and careers we wanted to.
Loyalty. I remember many a time when one of us was invited to do something with a friend, said we would come, and then we were given a better offer by a different friend. Our parents drilled into us that you had to hang out with the friends you had already made a commitment to by reminding us how badly we would feel if someone ditched us.
Intellect. Even when we were in the womb, our parents read books to us. From the start, constantly encouraging us to explore and develop a love of knowledge and learning. They always pushed us not to make high grades, but to work to our fullest potential, never settling for anything less than our best.
Justice. Whether it was Dad wearing bracelets with names of Soviet refuseniks, or him marching to integrate Forsyth County, or both of our parents constantly reminding us to do what's right, our parents taught us to stand up and fight for what we believe in, even if it means that we're standing alone.
Now, many of you may have had the privilege of receiving one of these bumper stickers from my father. For those of you who haven't seen one, it says, "Be patriotic, save gas, save lives, drive the speed limit." And if you know my dad, he definitely drives the speed limit.
Conviction. More important than teaching us right from wrong, our parents taught us to discover for ourselves what we believed in and to defend those principles using all the strength that we have within ourselves. They demonstrated that one individual can make a difference.
Last and certainly not least, our parents taught us the true importance of family. Growing up, each Friday night, we spent Shabbat together as a family, not only instilling the importance of family in our values, but also the importance of Judaism. And as our friends will tell you, we are certainly closer to our parents than many of our peers. Mom and Dad have always said that our siblings are the only friends we can be sure will be around forever. Sorry guys, you're stuck with me. And to never underestimate the true importance of family.
Generosity, fairness, trust, vision, intellect, loyalty, justice, conviction, and family. These are the values and attributes our mom and dad taught us to strive for in ourselves, to seek out in others, and to work for in the world around us. They demonstrate daily how to lead lives filled with love and balance, and that often the best way to bring happiness into your own life is by providing it to others.
We would now like to call up our parents, Alice and Brian Morthine, to present them with the Ben-Gurion Award. And the award reads, "For devoted leadership in the spirit of David Ben-Gurion, the first Prime Minister of the State of Israel and and founder of the Israel Bonds Program, in advancing the development of the economy of Israel, which is so vital to the welfare and progress of its people. Mom and Dad, we couldn't be prouder.
It just doesn't get any better than this. I had all my thank yous prepared, and I had no idea what my children were going to say, and I just have to tell you, you make me proud every day. And I love you, and I thank you, and you're all I asked for. So. Anyway, to the rest of you, many, many thanks go to all of you for honoring Brian and I with your presence here tonight. My words really are inadequate to express how thrilled we are that you have all come from near and far to be with us tonight and to hear about Israel Barnes. Israel Barnes. Governor Bonds. I could. Governor Barnes, we are especially honored to be sharing this evening with one of our own personal heroes. And Congresswoman Majette, we are touched that you made time to be here with us tonight. Your sincere interest in Israel and your thoughtful approach to politics is deeply appreciated in this district and by us. I want to give a special thanks to Jackie and Alan for doing such a fabulous job as chair of tonight's event. And Jackie, particularly for referring to us as that young couple. And to everyone on the host committee for working so hard to get folks here. Thanks also go to all the staff at the Israel Bonds Office for everything that you do and for your patience with all of my questions. Rabbi Davids and Cantor Colbert have always offered support and encouragement for our efforts here and in the community and have been wonderful mentors and friends to my children through the years, and for this I'm deeply grateful. Thanks also to Rabbi Schwartz, who has also been a mentor to one of my children and an invaluable role model. And Cantor Adler, thank you also for all that you do. Mom, many, many thanks to you for the example that you set by always rolling up your sleeves and plunging in to do whatever needed to be done. I knew about my grandparents' involvement with Israel Bonds, and in fact had looked for that brochure thinking that I had it, but I didn't, obviously. My grandparents were committed Reform Jews, and they were very, very involved with Israel at a time when it wasn't even on the radar for most Reform Jews. It began when they brought a young man out of Germany in the late 1930s to it's a long story, I'm not going to go into it here, but he became the son that they had lost previously. And my grandmother and my grandfather instilled that love for Israel in me. But my own personal journey toward a deeper involvement with Israel really gathered steam when I met my dear husband, Brian. He was then, on our first date, as he continues to be, a passionate advocate for the state of Israel. He spent a good part of the first day talking about his sister's aliyah to Israel and his own role as a fundraiser for Federation and UJA. It's a wonder I went out with him again. He told me then that as Jews living in America, we had the far easier role, that raising money for Israel was much easier than dealing with the daily realities of creating a Jewish homeland. However, it wasn't until my first visit to Israel in 1989 with Cantor Colbert and Kerry Rosenthal that I truly made the emotional connection. It was in Israel on that trip that I discovered the missing piece of myself and made the leap toward understanding Israel as the spiritual homeland of the Jewish people. On my second visit after the bat mitzvah of my daughter Paula, I recognized Israel as a vibrant, developing nation whose politics are sometimes at odds with my own. It was then that I knew that in a post-diaspora world, in order to ensure continued strong ties between American and Israeli Jews, we would have to develop a generation of leaders here who could connect with their Israeli peers so that each nation benefits from the strengths and insights of the other. My own personal dream continues to be that every Jewish American teen can have the opportunity to visit Israel and experience the reality of a thriving Jewish nation, the realization of 2,000 years of spiritual longing. Again, thanks to all of you for this beautiful evening and for supporting investment in the state of Israel.
I'm not much taller than Congresswoman Mashet, but I'm still going to read from my text. She's a little more used to being out on the campaign trail. Governor Barnes. What? I have a big voice. Thank you. If I get too loud for anybody in the back, wave your hand, please. Governor Barnes, Congresswoman Mashet, Rabbi Davids, Rabbi Schwartz, Cantor Colbert, Cantor Adler, family and friends. From the bottom of my heart, I thank each and every one of you for so much for being here tonight. Governor Barnes, thank you for your strong support of Israel and for all of your accomplishments on behalf of all Georgians. Webster's dictionary defines courage: the strength of mind to carry on in spite of danger or difficulty. Congratulations on being awarded Kennedy Profile and Courage Award, changing our state flag. While you have stated that your decision did not require extraordinary courage, all of us know that sometimes it's hard to do the right thing. All of us are indeed proud of your political courage and wisdom, and we wish you continued success in all of your future endeavors. Congresswoman Mashet, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your dedication to the citizens of the 4th Congressional District, all Georgians, and all Americans. I had a few minutes a little while ago to talk to your husband, Rogers. He advised me that many weeks you're working 7 days a week, up to 16 or 18 hours a day. It's hard work and then some. We all appreciate it. Last year when you campaigned for Congress, you issued a statement of position on U.S.-Israel relations. You wrote these eloquent words. When the modern state of Israel was created in 1948, the event marked the establishment of an independent home for the Jewish people, whose historic ties to that homeland spanned more than 5,500 years. Throughout that time, the Jewish people sought what every individual and people of nations throughout world history have sought: a safe and sovereign place to call home. The quest for a home to call one's own, and peace in that home transcends race, gender, ethnicity, political parties, and other real or perceived divisors. It is a universal desire of the spirit of humankind. Congresswoman Machette, thank you for your active support of Israel. And when you visit Israel in a few months, many years after your mother visited Israel, may you cherish your time there. For Israel is unique, and may you have an unforgettable journey. Webster's Dictionary also teaches us that a miracle is an extraordinary event taken as a sign of the supernatural power of God. I believe in miracles, and I believe in God. My life has been filled with miracles. My wife Alice, my daughter Paula, my son Evan, and my daughter Robin. But it is also a miracle that all of us have been blessed, all of us, to live in the United States of America. The United States is a miracle because we are blessed to live in a nation that is one of the greatest and most successful social experiments ever. The United States is a miracle because we have come together from all of the continents on earth. The United States is a miracle because we are black, brown, white, and many other beautiful colors. The United States is a miracle because we are Muslims, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus, Jews, and many, many other religions. And because we are blessed with a Constitution that guarantees our freedom to choose and practice our religion as we see fit. The United States is a miracle because Americans have been the beneficiaries of God's choicest bounties. As Americans, we've been given our freedoms on a silver platter by the hundreds of thousands of Americans who have fought and died in many wars to preserve our freedoms, including more than 165 Americans who have been killed in the last few months in Iraq. A very famous Georgian and one of the greatest Americans of the 20th century stated the following about Israel: I see Israel as one of the great outposts of democracy in the world, and a marvelous example of what can be done, how desert land can be transformed into an oasis of brotherhood and democracy. The famous Georgian who uttered these words was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He spoke these truths on March 25, 1968, less than 2 weeks before his tragic death. The United States is filled with miracles, but so is the history of the Jewish people and the state of Israel. It is a miracle that the Jewish people have survived despite centuries of anti-Semitism and hatred. It is a miracle that the Jewish people have survived despite the extermination of 6 million innocent men, women, and children who were murdered by Hitler and the Nazis in World War II, during World War II. It is a miracle that on November 29, 1947, the General Assembly of the United Nations voted to create a Jewish state in Palestine. Israel is a miracle. The first president of the state of Israel, Dr. Chaim Weizmann, taught us that a state is not handed to a nation on a silver platter. Israel is a miracle because on December 19, 1947, about 3 weeks after the United Nations voted to create a Jewish state in Palestine, the poet Natan Alterman paid tribute to young Israelis, dead and living, who sacrificed in Israel's War of Independence in 1948, became Israel's silver platter. Natan Alterman wrote, "From the darkness appeared a young girl and a young boy. And slowly they stepped to face their nation. Their fatigue had no limit. They had known no rest. And drenched in the dew of a Hebrew youth, silently they approached and stood quite still. And nobody could tell if they were living or had been shot to death. Then the nation spoke, choked by tears and wonder, and asked, 'Who are you?' And the two violently answered, 'We are the silver platter from which you were given this state of the Jews.' So they spoke, veiled in shadow, and at her feet they fell. And the rest will be told in the saga of Israel. When Natan Alterman proclaimed these words in 1947, no one knew the cost of Israel's silver platter. At the end of Israel's War of Independence, Israel had lost 6,000 lives, 1% of the Jewish population of Israel. To put these 6,000 lives into perspective today, 1% of the population of the United States is almost 3 million. I've been privileged to visit Israel 5 times. I've seen the graves of too many young soldiers, including boys and girls, ages 15, 16, and 17, who were killed in Israel's War of Independence. Israel's first Prime Minister, David Ben-Gurion, taught us that in Israel, in order to be a realist, you must believe in miracles. Israel is a miracle today because Jews have migrated to Israel from the 4 corners of the earth. Israel is a miracle today because it has stood up to decades of attempted annihilation. Israel is a miracle today because it is only 8,130 square miles, about 1/7 the size of the state of Georgia. Israel is a miracle today because the collapse of the former Soviet Union has led to Israel now having more than 1 million immigrants from the former Soviet Union. Israel is a miracle today because tens of thousands of Ethiopian Jews live in Israel. Israel is a miracle today because it has brought modern technology and education into the Middle East. And Israel has created new and innovative products, agricultural methods, and medical breakthroughs. This photograph is also a miracle to me, and I know not everybody can see it. I'll be happy to. Some of you have already seen it before today, including Congresswoman Majette. But to me, this photograph is also a miracle. In the middle is a young woman, my sister, Sheila Gotan, who made Aliyah, who went up and has lived in Israel for more than 30 years. And this is her husband, Yitzhak Gotan, who was born in Palestine in January of 1945, while World War II and the Holocaust raged in Europe. Yitzhak Gotan was born 2 months before Anne Frank died in a concentration camp, and more than 3 years before Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion declared Israel's independence at 4 p.m. on May 14, 1948. Yitzhak Dotan served in the Israeli army in the 1960s, and he was injured in the Six-Day War in 1967. He then served in the Israeli Army Reserves, the Miluim, for about 30 years. Sheila and Yitzhak have 3 remarkable daughters, Anat, Tal, and Adi. They all served about 2 years in the Israeli army. And this young man, I showed a picture of Congresswoman Michette last year. This is the extraordinary and only son of Sheila and Yitzhak, Roe. The 23rd Psalm starts, "The Lord is my shepherd." Roe is the Hebrew word for my shepherd. Roe has a wonderful sense of humor and is just a great kid. Roe has been in a fighting unit of the Israeli army for about 2 years. He has served in Ramallah, about 200 meters from Yasser Arafat's compound. He also served in Jenin. All 23 Israeli soldiers died in heavy fighting there last year. My sister's family is only one family in Israel, but the Dotan family is representative of the families that we support when we support Israel. And the Dotan family is representative of the families that we invest in when we invest in Israel bonds. From all these miracles grows a dream. A dream that has existed for thousands of years, is taught to us by the prophet Isaiah. Lo yisagoy al goy cherev, lo yimadu al milchama. These same words adorn the wall across the street of the United Nations in New York. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. In conclusion, may God protect all who are gathered here tonight and your families and loved ones. May God bless the United States of America with peace. May God bless Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, with peace. And may God bless the entire world with shalom, with peace, and let us say, Amen.
Rabbi Davis had the honor of making the pitch, and I have the privilege of announcing the goal, or the conclusion. This evening, in honor of Brian and Alice, we have sold 408,000 in Israel bonds. Is that what? 408,000. It was almost so much better. I have to check what I actually purchased tonight. I also want to add that also a member of our congregation serving on the bonds board, whose name we want to announce tonight, is Arlene Marcus. We close with words of prayer. Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, our God and God of all generations, God who gave us the land of Israel, God who has given us the privilege of living in the United States of America. With our hearts filled with gratitude for the leaders in our presence, for the gifts with which they bless us each and every day, we ask you, God, for your blessing as we go from this evening of honor and commitment. Be with us, Adonai, as we go about the daily business of being good stewards, guardians of our heritage. Help us as we stand up to be counted, to know that makes us count, that makes us worthy of all that you have given us. Enable us, O God, to use your gifts the way that you expect us to do. And help us as our hearts fill with joy, approaching Yom Yerushalayim tomorrow, the day in which we honor a dream come true, Yerushalayim Bnuyah, a rebuilt Jerusalem. Help us to ensure that our Ir Shel Shalom, our city of peace, leads us to peace. Amen.
Amen.